BrainStorm. BrainStorm 9000.
BrainStorm 9000. BrainStorm 9000. BrainStorm 9000.
BrainStorm,
9000?
maybe.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of BrainStorm 9000. I'm Master McMaster here in the studio with the ever-esteemed Dr. Schultz. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Could you explain to me what esteemed actually means?
It means you're fucking cool and you've done cool shit.
Okay.
So congrats on that. And,
So it's
and
like
you're welcome
respect.
for the
Yes.
compliments.
Thank you very much.
So gracious over here. My goodness.
Well, I'm kind of grumpy, my usual self, after taking public transportation to the city of New York, or in the city of New
Yes,
York.
we know how you feel about backpacks in the subway. What was your travel stress today?
The backpacks were there, but I had an additional observation to make, which actually I have to confess I've been making for a long time. In front of me, I had a gentleman, I would estimate approximately in his late 50s, early 60s, who was riding a bus in the following manner. Wireless headphones on large, watching a video on his computer and holding a cell phone in his hands. To the left of me, basically next to me, I had a younger person watching something on the cell phone with wired headphones on, texting and emailing at the same time. And the entire bus, to me, if I look around, looks kind of like a ghost town, if you know what I mean.
Right. Everyone's just staring at the glowing screen.
And multitasking.
Yeah, no, I had a very similar experience on my commute this morning. I was on a very, very crowded subway train, and everyone is just staring down at their phones, whether they're sitting or they're standing, and then people don't move into the goddamn subway car because they're just so enraptured. I see people, they're endlessly scrolling through news stories, they're scrolling through Instagram feeds and liking pics of hot girls, they're swiping right on Tinder, they're doing so many different kinds of things. People watch entire television shows on their phones when they're just on the subway or walking around. It's the times we live in.
Yes, which is what it is. I hate to say there is nothing that anybody can change anymore.
About the fact that screens are so pervasive.
And do you think they are addictive?
Absolutely. I think that I am living, talking proof.
Yes, you said in the first episode that your cell phone is your best friend, right?
Yes. And also that my television is about 3 feet from my bed, which is true.
It used to be 2.5 on the first episode. You moved away?
2.5? No,
That's what you said.
I'm guesstimating. I'm not, what am I, a carpenter? I'm measuring stuff all the time? I don't understand.
Carpenter would mean a mason.
Someone who measures shit and then cuts it and makes stuff. I don't know.
So you don't even know about the masons, do you?
Give me a break, Schultz. I'm trying to talk about my Netflix addiction. Let me open up here.
Okay.
So
Tell me more.
So today, obviously, we want to focus on screen addiction, social media addiction, our addiction to technology.
And we decided also to make it a 3-part episode, similarly to addiction. And I would like to remind people that we have a tendency, all of us, myself included, to use a word addiction in a very broad manner. Oh, I'm addicted to my cat. I'm addicted to coffee.
Might be hyperbolic. In that sense.
Yes, it is hyperbolic because addiction presumes that something is very wrong. Usually, we don't like people to be addicted because their addiction takes over their life. This is the main definition of addiction. Somebody who is addicted spends a significant larger proportion of their life obtaining and using the subject of their addiction. Their life begins to rotate about this activity.
And you think that screens don't fit that description? Because I kind of think they do.
For a large number of people, they do. And for, I'm hoping, at least an equally large number of people, it's not the case. I mean, all jokes aside, I was amazed today seeing a person right across from me when I was in a subway car reading a very, very thick book. And this person was at the end of this book, and it wasn't a Bible. People do read. And I know that there is a group of people who are trying to force themselves away from constantly being on the screen. They find it unhealthy.
Sure, and there are plenty of drug addicts that are trying to recover, but that doesn't mean that it's still a pervasive problem, right?
It is. No, it is a pervasive problem. I'm just trying to pull myself away from appearing like a grouchy 60-plus years old man who doesn't like the screen. So I have multiple cell phones. How many cell phones do you have, McMaster?
I have one cell phone, but I'm on it constantly. How many do you have? You
I
fancy
have
man?
two. I have one cell phone for myself, my personal cell phone, and then I have another cell phone with a totally different cell phone number for my practice. And the reason is that if somebody gives me a call on my practice cell phone, I'll pick it up immediately. And when I receive a phone call or a text on my private phone, I might choose to answer or not to answer. So that's why I have two cell phones. My practice manager has three.
Why?
Because there is a need to have three. And the people who work at our office have a regular landline, and we gave each one of them a cell phone because, believe it or not, and I know that you do believe, the majority of the millennials don't respond to phone calls, barely respond to texts, which we send, and sometimes respond to emails, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yesterday I had in my office for a conversation a neuroscientist. People who will continue listening to us will probably wind up watching our vlogs that we are planning to release later this year.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. And they'll see him. He's a pretty prominent neuroscientist. And we were talking about this issue. The issue that when we are at work, we respond to our emails religiously that are connected to our jobs. And in our private life, sometimes we choose not to. So we kind of go on the social media rehab.
Yes, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about eventually are different forms of, quote, social media or screen rehab solutions to try to curb these addictions. But first, let's talk about whether or not this is actually a problem.
So now, Master McMaster is going to do some stats for us.
Yeah, these are all off the top of my head. I conducted all these studies myself.
Listen, you can lie to our audience as much as you want to, but we all know that in my office, I have a Matrix chair that we stole from the set of the movie.
Yes.
And we hook you up and feed you all this information.
I thought we weren't going to share that with the audience, but okay, spoilers. All right, are you ready for this?
Yeah,
it's
always.
actually kind of disturbing.
Okay, well, I'm ready for that.
All right, we'll start off light. People touch their phones an average of 2,617 times per day. iPhone owners unlock their phones 80 times per day on average.
Yeah, they made it easy now. You just have to put your finger on it.
Yeah.
I have one of those.
Oh my God, I do that all the time because I have to see if I have any notifications.
Uh-huh.
All right, here's the one that I find the most disturbing, I think. Americans spend an average of 5 hours per day browsing on their phone. And
This is crazy.
If you're...
It doesn't sound real, actually.
No, it's so crazy, and it's probably so true, which is so sad. And if you do the math, which I did because I was uploaded into the Matrix, and so I know
Right.
everything.
Right.
If you live an average of 70 to 75 years, and you spend an average of 5 hours a day on your phone, that's 15 to 18 years of your life that you spend staring at your phone. Just on your phone.
So I've got news for you, actually.
Yeah.
If somebody lives such a short lifespan, 70 to 75.
Yeah, that's not even that old.
Yeah, they do not start touching the phone probably until age 4 or 5, I would hope.
Yeah.
And then what we call an active life, when you really are capable to enjoy everything that's been offered to you by life, is even shorter. It's, let's pretend I believe it, from your late teens until the end of your life. This
Yeah.
part I believe. From the early teens, I'm not sure that people have a full appreciation of
Yeah. I mean, nowadays.
the sophistication, right? So because it's one thing to touch the phone, and it's another thing to have a real multi-level experience,
Yes.
in my opinion.
True.
Okay.
All right. It's actually it's gonna get a little bit worse.
Really?
8 in 10 people say that they keep their smartphone near them at almost all times during their waking hours, and about 75% of people sleep with their phones next to them, like as in they wouldn't have to get up to get it, they could just reach for it. It's right next to them at all times.
Well, I have my phone next to me because I use it to wake me up.
Exactly, me too. That's one of the things.
But the sound is off, and I'm notorious for not picking up the phone calls in the middle of the night.
Oh, I put my phone on like do not disturb at night so that the sounds won't wake me up. But every morning because I use my phone for my alarm, when
Right.
that alarm goes off, then I'm on my phone, and I'm all of a sudden, able to plug into all of these different platforms. So I'm like, oh, I got to check my email. I got to check my Instagram. I got to check Facebook. I have to check Twitter. I have to check the weather. I have to check all this other
So
stuff.
an hour later, as you actually told us that it's 45 minutes later that
Yeah.
you are back to
And it's
you
like,
are back to life. Yeah.
what did I just do with my life?
Meditation,
Oh my goodness. All right.
or should I
So-
say anti-meditation?
Yeah. Okay. And then here's another one. Americans check their phones an average of 80 times a day while on vacation, and check their screens
My God.
more than 300 times a day
While on vacation?
while on vacation, not
That's
just a regular
awesome.
day.
Guys, maybe you should start going to all-inclusive resorts. You wouldn't have the time to check your phones.
Oh, you have to be there to Instagram it and to Snapchat it and to record it, and oh man.
Stupid me. I just enjoy
I
my
know.
life there.
I would like to be one of those people who like unplugs, but it's so hard because we're so attached to these things.
We'll talk about it. I'll teach you a couple of things.
Okay, well, so that's just cell phones, but we're talking about screens in general. So here are
Right.
some TV stats. So American adults are watching an average of 5 hours of television per day. So we were talking about 5 hours of just phone use. So this
Right.
isn't.
Well, it's probably simultaneously. As you know, it happens
Sure.
simultaneously.
Yep.
During the commercial break, you check your phone. Not giving people any ideas here, but I think you all do it anyway. So
Yep. And so in 2016, this study, and we'll post all of these links on our website so you can go and look at all of these disturbing statistics. In 2016, a study said that 60% of American homes have a tablet in them. And in 2015, this study said that Americans spent about 9.5 hours each day consuming content through their TV and tablet. And in 2016, the average was 10 hours and 40 minutes. And now it's 2 years later. Who knows what it is now?
yeah, but these stats don't add up at all. It sounds as if everybody is constantly on the screen doing absolutely nothing.
I mean,
That's crazy.
I don't know. It might be true. And, of course, there's always reason to be skeptical of these studies because, what was the control group? And
Nah, whatever.
but
don't know.
it's still
Disturbing.
it's just shocking.
Shocking.
Okay, I got a couple more. So, average population as of January 2018 of the United States, 325.6 million people. Internet users of this population, 286.9 million. So that's 88%.
Oh, so there are still some people who don't do it.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah, but they're probably not listening to this podcast anyway. So
well,
forget it.
I wonder if they're, the part of the population that are still like breastfeeding or, aren't able to use their fingers to touch phones yet.
You'd be surprised. Okay.
Active social media users, 230 million. That's 71% of the population.
Okay.
Mobile subscriptions, 340 million.
How many do we have of the population? Isn't it more than we have people in the United States? 340 million. How many millions do we have? Can you remind us?
325.
Right. So probably people have more cell phones per capita.
Yeah, well, and you have
I have two.
two, right?
Yeah, my practice manager has 3.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the bottom line is that we are overdoing it, correct? A little bit.
No shit.
Right. Let's see what can be done about all this stuff.
Okay. So let me make myself an example of one of the bad eggs, right? Who's addicted to
Okay.
screens. So, and this is true. I'm laying out this for the world, and I'm only a little embarrassed. My phone alarm wakes me up in the morning. I turn off the alarm and I immediately check what's new on Instagram, what's new on Facebook, how many emails I've gotten. Then I'll check the weather. Then I might look at a couple news stories, and then like time flies, and all of a sudden it's like 45 minutes later. Whoops. So then I get up, whatever. Then I'm getting ready and commuting to work. But I feel like I don't know. I don't like the silence. I don't like being unstimulated. So I listen to podcasts or music on my way to work. So I'm constantly having media fed into my brain. And then
Good. You are one of our listeners then, right? Potential listeners.
Yes. And then I get into the office and then I sit down at my computer and I'm on my screen all day. I'm doing work, I'm researching, I'm typing, I'm watching awesome videos of cats, I'm looking at memes, I'm doing all kinds of stuff. Then I get on my commute home, listen to another podcast, get home. The first thing I do almost every time when I get home, even before I feed my poor kitties, is I turn on my TV and I put on some Netflix show in the background just because I find it like soothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I leave it on while I'm doing stuff. I'll be in and out, but it's on pretty much until the moment I decide to go to bed. And then, of course, before I go to bed, I have to check all my social media again, just to make sure that I didn't, how many new likes have I gotten? How many new comments? Do people like my selfies? You can follow me at Selfie Nation USA on Instagram, just saying. So that is an average day for me. So I would say, without hesitation, that I spend the majority of my day staring at screens, and I'm not proud of it. And I've actually, since we started researching stuff for this episode, I've tried to reduce that purposefully, and it has been extremely difficult.
So remember there was a study when they took 9 students from school and they made them not to use any cell phones and any media for 2 weeks. And they kind of went into withdrawal initially.
Yeah.
And had typical symptoms of withdrawal, meaning they were dysphoric, not very happy, anxious, and had to apply special effort not to go back to what they used to do before with their devices. But eventually, after this period, it was obvious that their concentration got better and their energy level and their perception of life have improved. So you are a 20 plus years old person.
I'm almost 30.
Just trying to be nice here. You don't look 30.
I think it's nicer to say that I'm closer to 30 than 20.
Yeah. Okay, so you are closer to 30, and I'm very close to 63, a few months away. And I grew up without any of these devices. So let me tell you, people, and I don't feel ashamed about it at all, how I spend my day. So yes, my iPhone wakes me up. And yes, I'm a psychiatrist. And yes, I understand that it would have been much better if it wasn't my cell phone, but was a separate device. I used to have a separate device. It broke, and I'm too lazy to buy a new one. Yes, we do have in our bedroom a TV that is, I don't know how many feet away, not much further than yours. After I wake up, I also check, first of all, the situation with our podcast. And I frequently listen to certain parts of what's been edited when I'm getting ready. I also get the news on the cell phone for a very simple reason. Getting the news from paper is not common for me anymore, and getting it from TV upsets me enormously. So I actually first go on a particular news outlet in Russia that is progressive and read whatever is there. For some reason, it upsets me significantly less. So then during the commute, I have to listen to something. So I either listen to audiobooks or I listen to our podcast if it's necessary, just because I get car sick if I read. While on subway, I can read, and then I read my Kindle just because my vision is not that great, and these publishers have a tendency now to print books in very small letters. Just kidding, just I can see them. So on Kindle you can enlarge. And then I come to work, and my entire day I spend on my computer because I have to use what is called EMR, electronic medical records. Then lunch break, YouTube, usually something educational, sometimes funny.
Sometimes cats.
I have 2 live cats at home. So, no, I don't watch videos about cats.
What about the acro cats?
I don't even know what it is.
The acrobatic cats that can jump over shit and...
Oh, our
Come
cats are
on.
very capable. We have unusual cats. Yeah, so then coming home, actually, usually either being driven home or taking a public transportation. It's again an exposure to social media and screens. I forgot to say that every time I drive, I use a GPS.
Of course, yeah.
And I used to talk back to my GPS in the old days when it would say, "You just made a wrong turn." Sometimes with a German accent, they did it intentionally. So at my ripe 63 almost, I'm constantly on the screen doing something.
Yeah,
and it's
so
terrible.
it's
My
not-
vision, my
yeah.
vision went down very significantly. Ever since electronic medical records were forced on us, which I'm not saying a bad thing. I don't know whether it's bad or good, actually. I have to be on the computer all the time. And when I used to be on call, for example, at the hospital, I would have to go on the screen in the middle of the night, which is not very good for your eyes at all. So I don't know that there is anybody left in a significant number who is not exposed. I do have fellow psychiatrists my age who do not do what I do.
Certainly there are people in the world, and bless their hearts, I wish I had the self-control they had, who don't spend the majority of their days looking at screens. But let's get real. Most people, the majority of, let's say, Americans, spend a significant amount of their day staring at screens, whether it's a computer or a cell phone or a television. It's constant.
Or, I hate to say it, all of the above.
Or yeah, no,
Like
definitely.
all at the
yeah,
same,
I am
all at
all
the
of the
same
above.
time. Yeah, all at the same time. I also would like to bring to our attention this fact. Because we are using our devices all the time, we also stay connected and are reachable significantly more. Like
Yep.
even think about our professional relationship. So you work here. I can decide to reach out to you by either texting or emailing after hours. And you sometimes, rightfully so, can reach out to discuss something with me by texting or emailing. Even a simple phone call now is basically available 24/7 anywhere in the world. When we go on vacation, we have a special Wi-Fi that you can buy, and I'm not going to promote it, but it's available for a very reasonable price. And anywhere in the world, you have a Wi-Fi phone connection. Anywhere in the world.
Yeah. And also, I recently discovered, I don't know about other kinds of phones, but on my iPhone, if you go under settings and then you go to battery, it will tell you what percentage of your time you spend on different apps. And it will actually tell you within 24 hours and then within 7 days how many hours or, minutes you've spent on those different apps. So I just looked at mine this morning, and in the past 7 days, I have spent 4 hours of my life on Instagram. I have spent 2 hours of my life looking at my email, almost 2 hours looking at Facebook, 1.7 hours on texting, and a significant amount of other time on apps that I won't tell you guys about.
Okay, so
That's a lot of time that I could have been doing something else, like reading a book or, I don't know.
Or not, because it sounds probably like a joke, but I say or not because actually life right now, people, if you haven't noticed, is very different, which makes me also to suggest to people who believe in different circuitry inside of the brain that now most likely we have to presume that different circuits from before are activated. For example, our eyes are exposed to a very, very different type of a signal most of the time. It's one thing when you read or stare in space or even watch a movie, and it's a totally different thing when you watch a very intense, very much overproduced, very short episode on YouTube on a very, very bright screen. I'm talking about vlogging, for example, where things cut in and cut out very, very fast. Even this gentleman who was riding a bus in front of me, he was watching something on Netflix, and I was amazed how edited the material is, like how frequently the scenery changes every few seconds. Yes. This is a very different type of signal that our brain is now receiving. And because to the best of our knowledge, our brain does not have a similar experience, unless we were created by the aliens and don't remember.
Let's table that theory for now.
Yeah, it is a new, very stressful thing. So similarly to chemical addiction, it is not very healthy. And most likely, it would be nice if we had a plan of helping people to recognize first that it's a problem. That's why we are talking about it today. And then offering reasonable, I would dare to say, doable plan of how to deal with it. Because just by telling people to stop using their devices...
Yeah, right. Never gonna happen.
Oh, stop using devices. Just a second. Let me just finish what I'm doing. Yeah. So...
No, I tried to... Since I've been researching this, and like I said, I've been trying to use technology less. And so I talked to my boyfriend about, okay, what if we make the bedroom a technology-free zone? No cell phones, no laptops, no television, so that is just sleep space, and it's a calm place where we can be mindful. And he got so agitated at the idea of being away from his phone for that long. He was like, I'm sorry, I need that next to me.
Actually, I have to tell you that it's everybody's own business, of course, because I hope our listeners own or at least lease their brain, not just rent it. Not my idea to say it like that. I have to give the credentials to Dr. Amen, who came up with this terminology in one of his books. But I like it. I think that people need to start owning their brains rather than leasing them or renting, and we can talk about it later. So we do need sleep. We are going to have, I hope, at some point, a separate episode on sleep. It's a very amazing event. And no, our brain doesn't rest during our sleep, but
It's one of my favorite events.
Yes, but we do need sleep. Our brain needs sleep for some reason, for many, many reasons. And it's better if it's an uninterrupted period of approximately 8 hours. Like it or not. Of course, some people need less sleep, but we are not talking about sleep right now. So we need downtime. Some people try to meditate. So meditation, we can pretend that meditation is an attempt to look inside, to take your attention away from what is distracting in the world and keeping your attention closer to your own self.
So in the next part of our series, we're going to go into more detail about why exactly screens and social media are so addicting, the different aspects of those of that technology that causes that same sort of addictive behavior that you might see in something like drug addiction.
Right.
And we're also going to talk about the effect that addiction and that stress has on your brain and on your psyche and your emotional life, your social life. And it sounds obvious to a lot of people. Everyone says like, oh yeah, I use my phone too much. And like Paulina was saying in our second episode about millennial communication,
Yes.
there's less face-to-face communication that's less meaningful. We're always staring at our phones rather than doing things in person with each other. And that's a problem. So we're gonna go into more detail with that and exactly why that's a problem and why all of this screen addiction is fueling that. And then we're going to discuss some solutions. And of course, we're not going to be as simplistic as, just don't do it, because come on, let's be real.
Yeah, just don't do it is a good idea, but it doesn't happen. And I would like to remind people that there are cases, and maybe it sounds too cheesy and naive, when people get so distracted by the screen overuse that they get into accidents.
Yeah.
Car accidents.
Yeah, that's just one unfortunate side effect. The distraction of screens.
Yes.
And how they can distract you from other things happening around you. I have literally, gosh, I'm exposing so many embarrassing moments on this episode. I have literally walked into a tree because I was staring at my phone. And actually just yesterday, I walked into one of those little police call boxes because I was staring at Instagram.
I hope you didn't push any buttons. I don't think it's actually very unusual. I can tell you about a group of people who have it easy with the social media and
Who's
the screens.
that?
Surgeons. When they perform surgery, they cannot use their cell phones.
Yeah.
Because they are not sterile. And you cannot sterilize a cell phone.
But what about when they make it so that you can implant it in your brain?
Well, let's wait for this one. It might happen much sooner than we think, and we can get a connection. Can you imagine somebody getting disconnected and hitting their head?
Oh, gosh.
Actually, just imagine for a second, I've been thinking about it for a long time, that all of a sudden somebody got implanted from 1950 or 1960 or even 1970 and today, walking on the street, noticing that a bunch of people are walking around talking to themselves like crazy. Because they have Bluetooth earpieces,
Yeah.
some of which are very small and you can't even recognize them right away. Or somebody has long hair and you cannot see the earphones.
That happens to me a lot. People will try to talk to me because my headphones are black and my hair is also black. And they'll start an entire conversation with me and not even realize that I couldn't hear a word they were saying.
Yes. So it's a new environment. It's basically a different lifestyle, and it's here to stay until something new is developed technologically.
And at this point, it kind of seems that it's only going to expand from here. I mean, even in like the past decade, it's gone from, or from the year 2000, it's gone from flip phones and really clunky laptops and desktop computers to the first iPhone to iPads and
Right.
smartwatches and Bluetooth and Google Glass. Like, fuck, people who use Google Glass, you look like dicks. I'm sorry, but
How
just
many
stop
have
using
you
them.
met?
No, I don't. I don't associate with people who use Google Glass.
I don't think anybody does, actually.
Well, I don't think anymore because they realize they look like dickheads.
So I think we spoke quite a bit about screen addiction being an issue.
Yes, it's an issue. I think everyone can agree with that. We're going to talk about the ways that it's affecting our brains and our lives that might not be immediately obvious to you, even if you're aware that it's a problem.
What
It
if all
goes
of a
so
sudden,
much deeper than a lot of people think it does.
what if all of a sudden we discover that it significantly decreases people's sex drive? Would it help them not to use it as much?
What about Pornhub.com?
I actually don't watch.
No, internet porn addiction is a whole other thing that I think has affected a lot of people's lives.
Something to talk about the next time. So, what I would like to suggest to our listeners to consider is probably to send us your thoughts about this, share with us your experience, and ask us questions.
Yeah, do you think you're addicted to social media? Do you think you're addicted to your phone? A lot of people might say that they're not, but then if you ask them to put down their phone, not to look at it for, let's say, 5 hours, maybe even a whole day, it would be really, I couldn't do it.
So I can tell you what I do, but I'm not a very good example, seriously. But what I do is this. First of all, I do not have a Facebook account for a number of years because I caught myself checking Facebook way too frequently every morning. I do not respond to most of the phone calls on my private phone or emails over the weekend. I developed a tradition to quote with a particular sound all the people who I consider I need to accept a phone call from, family members, some people who work with me. Others, I have a tendency to ignore. Certainly, it's not true about phone calls that are work-related. That's why I have a separate cell phone for that. On a weekend, we try to spend significantly more time outside, or sometimes I just spend downtime when I maybe read.
Oh, come on. You're making me feel bad over here, Dr. Schultz.
Yes. So I'm not a very good example, but I would like to remind a very painful fact. I'm almost a few months short of 63 years old. I grew up in a very different environment. I presume that an overwhelming majority of people who live in industrially developed countries, and even more so in third world countries with access to technology, overdo it every single day.
Yeah. You know, I am inclined to play devil's advocate
Of
as
course.
to why it's a problem, if it really is a problem, because as we discussed in our second episode with Paulina, social media and screens and the internet, it can allow us to experience so many things and communicate with so many people much more rapidly, much more, sometimes more effectively. So it allows us to do all these really cool things. But I do think that we've gotten to a point where we're overdoing it and it's hard to stop. And it's starting to affect our lives for the worse.
Yes, I agree.
So we're going to pick up here in our next episode where we're going to start talking about exactly what it is about this technology that makes it so addictive and the kind of stress that causes on our brains.
Okay. So maybe it's very unfair for me to ask you, but do you have a eudaimonia moment for us today? And if you say no, I'm okay with that. Just say no, McMaster.
I want to say no, but I'm going to give it a shot because
Okay.
as we mentioned, eudaimonia means human flourishing, and I want everyone to flourish.
I agree
So let's go with this.
with you. Okay.
The eudaimonia moment today can be that, okay, we have all this technology that allows us to do all this cool shit. We're aware of it. And we're increasingly aware as it becomes more and more pervasive and more addictive of the negative side effects of it, as well as the positive. And I think more and more the ignorance to the negative side effects of technology like smartphones is sort of subsiding because more and more of us are realizing that this is a problem and that we do need time to unplug. And I think that's a positive thing. And it reminds us why we need to take a break from our screens and go back to the real world. It at least makes us think about what's different in experiencing a screen versus experiencing the real physical world and not virtual reality.
I couldn't say it better myself, but people with backpacks, remember, the cell phone conversation doesn't take away from your responsibility to take them off.
Seriously, dudes, just stop.
On this positive message, we are inviting you to meet with us next week to continue this conversation about screen addiction.
Yes, we all need to learn more about what all of this shit is doing to our brains and whether or not or to what extent it is ruining our lives. So join us next week where we're going to go more in depth into this topic. And for now, signing off, Master McMaster.
Goodbye, everybody. Keep your brains open to our podcast and keep them shut to all this pervasive, excessive media usage.
Except our podcast. I mean, come on.
Of course, I just said it.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of BrainStorm 9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us, hey, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever the hell you listen to your podcasts.